Welcome, my name is Nayo and I work for the Mendocino County Library. I'm going to go over a few things as we begin. Tonight, we're here for making acorn gnocchi. This is the fourth and final installment of our 4 cooking demonstrations, which are part of our Book to Action program, featuring the book 6 California Kitchens, written by Sally Schmidt, with programs focused on local foods, recipes, gardening, and more. This program is supported by the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services and the Library Services and Technology Act, which is administered in California by the State Librarian. We are recording this session and we will post it to the Mendocino County Library YouTube channel. Today's cooking demonstration features John Farais, a Northern California chef who specializes in cooking with plants native to North and South America. Today, he will be demonstrating making acorn gnocchi. The recipe will be shared in the chat along with a link to a post-program survey that we would love for you to fill out after the program completes. Before we get started today with John, we are going to show a short video about his company, Indigenous Edibles, to give everyone some background on what John is all about.
My name is John Farais. I've been a chef for 20 years. I work with ingredients native to the Americas. Pre-colonial is what I like to concentrate on as far as the native foods, because that is where the true flavors and the true artfully designed foods came from, was from the Native Americans. Native foods are actually very healthy.
This field of mustard and radish very well could have been propagated by the first people of California. And hundreds of years later, it's still with us. So we must carry on with the way they did it. We don't take everything in a field, and we always leave it for Mother Nature to be able to repropagate what is growing.
Indigenous Edibles was started as a vehicle to promote my teachings, my dinners. I created a lot of menus using native ingredients.
Here comes the fun part. You want to make it look like a gnocchi? You don't have to. I think that's probably the most fun way to do this, is to pull these with your fingers and create your own dumpling.
Part of Indigenous Edibles is about foraging. Like we use the acorn flour. I forage for those acorns. It's about what foods are edible. The weeds, that we kick around and see all the time, some of those are edible. I found out also that I couldn't really do the food without some kind of historical context. And then I just delved into the history of Native Americans and native foods and the techniques, the natural history. So all of those studies helped me to develop the food that I have developed. And I knew that this was where I wanted to stay, was doing native foods and learning more about all aspects of it, the ceremony, the storytelling, well, of course, the cooking and the techniques that were all used. And of course, along with that comes the heartbreak that they as people have suffered for hundreds of years. So it's quite a basket of emotions in understanding Native history.
And with that, I'd like to welcome Chef John Farais.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. You got a little bit of an aspect of the video and what I do. Tonight, we're going to be doing acorn gnocchis, like she mentioned. Now, gnocchis is, of course, the Italian name for a dumpling, basically. And like I mentioned, I process my own acorn flour. I go out and forage and create the flour. I'm going to show you tonight now with the, I got some slides that we'll do tonight to show you how we process it and give you a little bit of history behind the acorns, because it's very interesting and it's very California. So that's one of the things that I think that you'll really understand is how important acorns were and how important of a crop it still can be. So if we want to get started on the PowerPoint, please, the first slide.
Okay, one moment.
Acorn, California's superfood. It entered the diet thousands of years ago, 2500 BCE, before Common Era. And they used to be able to get 1,300 pounds to 1,750 pounds per tree or per acre. I'm not sure how that was figured out, but it's probably a historical average. Now, we know the archaeologists know when Native people started to use acorns in their diet, because they studied bones, skeletons, and they discovered that the skeletons that were thicker is the skeletons that had acorns that came through their system. Prior to that, the bones were thinner. So it was kind of an interesting. So they were able to get the dates, DNA. I don't know how they do that, but they were able to get the approximate dates on when the acorns became food. And acorns were so prevalent that they actually named a science after it. It's called balanophagy. I don't think you'll see that word anywhere else. Balanophagy means acorn eating, and I think that came from one of the archaeologists. So our acorns were important enough to where they were a highly traded item behind salt, and salt was naturally gotten from the shores of the ocean. Next slide, please. And so you can see I'm sorry, you can go to the next slide after that. That's the different shapes of acorns there. There's only two different kinds there. Even in nature, acorns are important to animals. And this is from a acorn woodpecker. He drills a hole and packs his acorns in there. It was really something. I was trail hiking in Marin, and I saw this tree, and I just couldn't resist to take a picture of it. It's pretty amazing how woodpeckers even stow away their acorns. Next slide, please. And so this is Grinding Rock Park. This, as you'll see, this is a huge flat stone that has hundreds of holes in it. And what those holes represent was the mortar and the pestle action of grinding acorns. And the ladies of the village would get together, and they would all do this. This would be an all-day affair, and they would just keep grinding acorns all day. And the very human part of the story is they would sing songs. They had grinding acorn songs, and so it kind of, I suppose, passed the time. But it just goes to show you how important the acorn processing was to California natives. Next slide, please. This is, it's back. It's okay. Well, it's a little bit too late now. How did it get that way? Anyway, at least it's okay with you. It's just different on mine. Anyway, this is one of the ways that the Native American historically leached acorns. Now, acorns has tannic acid, and it's kind of toxic if you get too much of it into your system, but it's not really going to kill you. You'll probably stop eating it before you actually get sick from it. But the leaching is done by water, so it's a very simple process, but it is kind of laborious. And what they did here, this illustrates it very well, is they would dig a hole in the sand and then line that hole with rocks, and then put some leaves and well, mostly leaves and like conifer needles, and then they would the acorn flour that they did crush and they did grind, they would put into this hole, and then they would just pour water through it. And because it was sand, it would leach right through, and it would leach the acorns. So just flushing through water will eventually leach the tannic acids out of the acorns. Next slide, please. All right, let me change mine here. Sorry. And so here you'll see a picture of the granaries. Now, granaries are storage areas that were handmade by the Miwoks. Probably most native cultures had some form of a granary or some kind of storage. Here in California, this is what they did. They suspended it on tree trunks, so it was off the ground to keep out ground animals. And then they would build these storage areas, and they would store all of their acorns there. Now, as it says here, this is at Yosemite, and you could probably tell by the signature falls there. I think that's the Yosemite Falls. But anyway, so they would keep their acorns for seasons in these granaries. And as it says here, the site is now the Yosemite Lodge Cafeteria. Kind of an inglorious way to end history, but that's so be it. So anyway, this is a wonderful picture of the culture that was living at the time of Yosemite. All right, next one, please. And so this is a basket of acorns that I had foraged maybe 2 seasons ago. Now, the thing about acorns is that they have massed years. It's not every year that you're going to be able to get acorns from a tree. You may get a few here and there, but every year, every couple of years, perhaps, it's what's called a massed year, which is where they just really drop. And all of this is in from one front yard in Fairfax. So just to let you know, I'm at Terra Firma Farms here in Petaluma, and we have an outdoor kitchen. And so there's plenty of oak trees in the area. And every year I would go out and get as many as I can. And this year, I think it was 2 years ago, it was a beautiful year. This all came from one front yard in Fairfax. So it was pretty amazing. And so they were all over the place. Cars were even running right over them. You can hear hundreds of cracks. All of those acorns are gone. Okay, next slide, please. So now I'm going to show you the contemporary acorn flour making that I do. Next, please. Next slide. So basically what you need to do first, of course, shell them. And I just found a perfect mortar to do the shells. You would put them up, you would do them straight up and down with the point of the acorn on the ground, and then you would just bang it from the top, and it kind of splits open. And this is when they're dry. Most of the historically, I believe that the native Californians cracked the shells when they were still fresh. I do them. These are from a couple of seasons, so they were dry when I got to them. So it kind of goes real fast, but it still is very laborious. Next one, please. Next slide, please. And so after they're shelled, you throw them into a bucket. Now, this is my method. There's plenty of other ways to do this, but the steps are all the same, that they all go into water. You need to keep the water clear, keep leaching with water. So I throw them into the buckets. And as you can see there, the water's clear when you start. Next slide, please. And then after even a few hours, depending on how dirty they are, your water turns brown. That's the tannic acid. That's the time that you change the water. Next slide, please. And you keep changing the water until the water's clear. And then at that point, it's the acorns are very sweet. That's the time that you want to do into the next step, which is the way I do it is I put it into a blender. It's probably about 2 cups of whole acorns, shelled acorns that have been leached into a blender. And I add enough water to just go to the top of the acorns, a little water over the acorns. Then I blend it. Next step, please. Next slide. Then I blend it, and it kind of comes out in a kind of a mush. And I put it through a cheesecloth, and I let the water drip out. And that mass then goes into, next slide, please. Then what I do is I take that mass, that little slurry, if you will, and I put it onto a dehydrator sheet. Now I have a dehydrator especially for this, and I keep it around 175 degrees, 150 degrees, 150 to 175. And I spread it out on this dehydrator sheet. And then you can do it without dehydrator. You can put it in your oven at the lowest temperature and let it just go on all night. And in the morning, you should have dried. Next slide, please. You should have dried acorn flour. What's going to happen is the flour is going to get a little bit, it's going to look like parched earth. I think maybe you can see a little, well, actually it's going to look like parched earth. And then that's when I put it into this Omega juicer. And the Omega juicer is different than other juicers because it has a worm gear. So it's a horizontal gear as opposed to being vertical and going around in circles. This is basically like a large screw type apparatus. It goes slowly, but it's very powerful, and it comes with attachments to grind. And so I take advantage of that using the grinding attachment, and I grind it. And next slide, please. And then the way it comes out is nice and smooth, and it's just about ready. There's still one more step that we could do because there's going to be a little bit of stone-like flour in there yet. So you want to put it through a coffee grinder, which will is basically the final step. And that gives you your acorn flour. So that's it in a nutshell. Probably all of it would take about, sometimes it takes as long as 2, and most of that time is just leaching. It's just staying on top of the leaching. You can change the water twice a day, 3 times a day, as long as you have the time. Just keep changing the water. It'll be brown and stay brown until you change it and add clean water. That gets brown again. You keep changing it until it's clear, like I mentioned, and it's very sweet when it's ready to go. So that's most of where the time is in doing acorn flour. So it is a labor-intensive type of thing for that reason. So here we go. Tonight we're going to do acorn dumplings. This is one form of dumplings that I've done. It's a lot of fun. Tonight I think we're going to do the classic gnocchi. I've made acorn dumplings. I've also made acorn bread. And tonight we've got the acorn gnocchi, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So we're going to get started.
John, before we get started, there was a question.
Okay.
And they were asking, it can take as long as 2 days, or was that 2 weeks for the leaching?
It can take as long as, I've had some that take as long as 2 weeks, but it's probably done within a week, 4 or 5 days, depending on how clean they are. Reason for me that it takes a long time is because some of them are from storage from like a couple seasons ago. And so, they tend to get a little dusty and dirty, and so it may take a little bit longer, but it's going to be probably at least 3 to 4 days. Now around here in Northern California, we have the acorn trees that with the large acorns. Gosh, now I can't think. I'm trying to remember the name of them. But anyway, they are nice and clean and big. I try to go to where there are large acorns because it's a lot. You get a lot more bang for your buck, if you will. So and if you store them and a season, if you like, you can also. Another reason I keep them in storage is because they dry well, and it's a lot easier to shell them. But you can shell them while they're fresh, and then leach them then, and that would probably be another probably around the same time, 4 to 5 days maybe to leach. You'd want, like I said, you keep changing the water until it's clear. So you could probably get it leached within a week, maybe less. But it's worth a try. It's just a lot of fun to find out. That's I've always had fun doing that. Like I said, sometimes it takes 2 weeks. It depends on the acorn, I think, also. I noticed that I picked up a lot of different acorns, and they have various times and various amounts of tannic acid. Okay, so does that answer your question?
That's
We can get now. What we're going to do, what I got is I got regular flour, organic white all-purpose flour, and I got some of my acorn flour that I did. So we got that. I'm going to be using heirloom eggs tonight. You can see the little blue, aren't they cool? And then we're going to make a sauce with I've got some sage from the garden. And another part of this is ricotta cheese, 12 ounces of ricotta cheese. That makes for a nice pillow soft gnocchi. You can make gnocchis or dumplings without this, but they don't reheat really well. So, or they don't store very well either, for that matter. If you were to put them in the water right away and let them get done and float and then eat them, it would probably be okay. But this way they're nice and soft, and people are kind of used to that kind of soft, chewy type of gnocchi. So I use ricotta cheese. And then also some Parmesan cheese. We'll be topping it. And we're going to make the sauce with butter and the sage. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my board. I might get a little messy here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to measure out. Actually, no, what we're going to do first is we're going to do the eggs. So the recipe calls for 2 egg yolks and 1 regular whole egg. So I'm going to do the egg yolks now. I'm doing this way to show you one way on how to get the yolk without the whites. As you can see, this is really orange. Isn't that gorgeous? Put that in there. And we're going to do one more. Let's see how the blue one looks. Looks like it's just as orange. So these are from heirloom chickens. And it looks like the yolks are outstanding. Sorry, I got a shell in there. So anyway, next we're going to add a little bit of salt, our ricotta cheese, 12 ounces of ricotta cheese, 2 egg yolks, and I'm going to add another whole egg. So that's 3 eggs, 2 egg yolks, and 1 whole egg. And let me add the egg. Okay, there we are. Gotta love heirloom eggs. Put everything in the compost there. Here at the farm, when everything gets composted, whatever is possible to compost, that's what we do. Okay. So I'm gonna stir this up. What you want to do, well, it's almost orange. Look at that. Gorgeous. You want to get this, you can also put this, if you're going to make more quantities than this, I would put it into a processor. But in this case, it's not necessary because we're going to do a small batch. Okay, so there we are. You want to incorporate it. You can do it by hand. It's pretty easy, simple, and quick. That way you don't have to clean up the processor. All right, so now then we'll add our flours. Okay, let's do. It's going to be 1 cup each of acorn flour and 1 cup all-purpose flour, AP flour they call it. Let me get my water started too. So by the time we get there, so this is going to take some just very simple. It's going to be just about boiling water. Okay. So now I'm going to mix all this together. Then we're going to turn it out. And you just want to get started on the mix, but then you're going to knead it because it'll get too thick for your whisk, as you can see here. Then we're going to turn this out onto the board. You bakers out there are probably cringing on how I'm doing all this. But, all right. So there we go. So we're going to turn this out now onto the board. There we are. You saw this in the video. This is the good part. Now we're just going to work it with our hands. We're going to add a little bit more flour if we need to, because it could get a little sticky. I'm going to add a little more flour because it is kind of sticky. So it's kind of an organic process. You want to feel that out. If it's, going to be the measurements that I showed you are going to be enough, or, you may end up having to add a little more flour, and that's perfectly okay. And we want to get a little bit more going. All right, I think we're going to achieve what we want here now. The thing I like about all of this, about cooking, is that it's an organic process. You get to feel the food. You get to just be with it. This kind of baking, this kind of dumpling making, working with flour has been going on for thousands of years. Bread was one of the earliest uses of flour, and it continues today with dumplings and pasta. Gosh, you name it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and a little bit more, still a little sticky. It sticks to your fingers, you know that it's still a little bit too wet. You want it to be able to be pliable, but not really sticky. So and it's really nice and soft. It feels so good. So as you can see, the process, it actually takes longer to make the acorn flour than it does to make the gnocchis. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I think we're about done here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it up, work with one for this demonstration. I'm going to work with just half of what I did. Okay, so really that's the biggest part about all of this is just working with this dough, getting it to where you want it to be. Like I said, you want it pliable, and you don't want it necessarily sticky. So I think we are close to being done here. Still a little bit. Okay, what I'm going to do now, and you can also go to making pasta with this too, noodles if you like. you know? So it's very versatile, very simple. As you can see, it was what, 3, 4 ingredients at the most. 2 of them were flours, eggs, all right. I'm going to clean off my board here. And then we'll add a little more flour. Okay. The board will get sticky with the sticky dough. The board's going to get sticky too. So you want to kind of loosen all that up with some flour. Keep it nice and pliable. Okay, so now I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. Roll it out. See how nice it is? Now, acorn flour is a non-gluten flour. So anything that you find in America as far as making flour from is going to be non-gluten. The gluten flours come from Europe. When the Spanish came over, any of the people from Europe came over, they brought with them wheat. That's what has the gluten in. And there are plenty of flours that you can make here in America, but none of them have gluten. So that would be quinoa flour, acorn flour. Also, you can make flour from wild rice. Those are all perfectly good flours. It's just kind of learning how to work with non-gluten flour. I'm working with gluten and non-gluten here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to roll this. I'm going to take one. I'm going to roll it. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting off little pieces at a time. As you saw, I've already cut my dough in half. So I've got a bunch of dough yet that I could still work with. So maybe I'll just keep that and freeze it. Try this again when I have friends over. So what you want to do now is you want to roll this into, we can get our traditional, what I'll do is I'll do 2 different kinds of dumplings. So this will be the more traditional dumpling, the gnocchi as you know it, with the little barrel-shaped cylinders. Let's keep going on this. Still working with it. Okay. There we go. Okay. So you just kind of roll it from the middle outward, because that way you don't get this big hump. It'll look like a snake that ate an animal or something if you don't roll it out from the middle outwards. And it kind of gets thinner and it gets even though. Because so now you can see it's nice and even. I've got some water boiling here. Okay. Still get them a little bit thinner. And, of course, the thinner you get them, the more you'll get out of your little roll and the more enjoyment you get. Okay. So now, there we are. So we have our little dumplings. Now, if you wanted to go one step further, oh, I forgot to get it. Let me grab a fork, and I'll show you how to get the little ridges. Okay. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to roll it like this with the fork. You get your little ridge. Everybody seems to like that. That kind of signifies what the gnocchi is. It's kind of the trademark of the gnocchi, if you will. So there you are. So you just roll the tines of your fork onto the gnocchi. And you get your little ridges. Okay. I'll do regular gnocchi. So we're gonna do the classical shape here. I'm gonna drop these in. I'm gonna add some salt to the water. We didn't add any salt to the mixture, which you can certainly do. You can add salt to the flours. Salt is always a good, salt is meant to enhance the taste. It brings out the best. It's also a preservative too. So that's how for thousands of years, hundreds of years even, that's how people preserve their foods. Okay. They kind of flattened out a little bit, so they don't quite turn as well. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do this batch here. As you can see, I still got another batch here that I'm going to show you another type of gnocchi. So here we are. We're going to add that into the water now that's boiling. When they float, they're going to be done, just like anything else. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to add butter, 1 stick of butter. You'll see this in the recipe. This is for the sage brown butter. So in order to get brown butter, basically what we're doing is we're just cooking, heating up the butter. And the butter will get a little bit brown. You want it to get to the point of where it is nutty. It smells kind of nutty, nut-like, I should say. Okay. All right. Clean off my board. All right, so we are doing our gnocchi in here. We're browning our butter. You do want to control it. You don't want the butter to get too burnt because that'll happen. And then here's another
We have a question, John.
Yes.
They want to know what kind of knife did you cut that with?
Oh, that's it's called a dough knife, basically. You can use it to scrape. You can use it to cut. Bakers use it. It's using to cut dough. So it's a dough cutter. So you'll find those anywhere where they sell kitchen equipment. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them. This is what kind of like what I did in the video. I just took them off the little thing and just kind of created my own little shape. Kind of round with a little bit of a indentation in the center. But you know, whatever you want to do is perfectly fine. There's no right or wrong. It's just all fun. And as you can see, it didn't take very many ingredients. You can work with this to kind of experiment what you want. So I like to I kind of like the shapes of something a little bit different. So basically, I take a little bit of I just take a little bit off, kind of work it a little bit, and then I just kind of put my thumb print in the middle of it. Okay, so our butter, you can hear the butter. I can hear the butter.
You making a video?
Yes,
Where's the camera?
it's being recorded right here.
All right.
So this is a working farm. So people are going to come and go. You're going to hear noises. You may even hear, if you get a chance, you may even hear some ducks. I got my dog here, Lily, with me too. Okay, so these are floating. That means that they are done. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take them out. They'll hold up for a little bit because they're nice and thick. So basically, you just take two sage leaves. This is sage from my garden. We're going to drop it in there. And we want them to cook a little bit together so that we have a nice sage taste in the butter, which is fantastic. It's a classic type of butter sauce. It's kind of like a sauce. Okay. All right. So let me get these out of here. And then we're going to go on to the next one. I'm going to put them into the bowl this way. We'll mix it with the butter. And then we can go on to make our second batch. So what I like to do is I just like to take it, create a little bit of a ball, perhaps a little round shape, and then I just make a little thumbprint in the middle. But you're welcome to do anything that you feel is fun for you. Your own signature little dumpling. Everybody says, "Oh, I know who made that," because that's your signature dumpling. So I got the water boiling, and I got the sage butter going here, as you can see. So that's what we want. We want nice foam. We want a nice even heat. It's a little bit brown, and it has a little bit of a nutty taste to it. The sage is going to be tasting really good on this. And then we also got some Parmesan cheese that we'll top it off with. But let me drop these in. I'll do a couple more. We'll have a nice little dinner here. Okay. Rub a little bit of flour in there. Okay, these are ready. Okay. So here we go here. So you can hear the sage crackling. That's a good sign. So I got my gnocchis in a bowl. I'm going to add a little bit of, oh, you hear that? All right. That's done. Okay. So we're going to mix this, kind of mix it together. A little bit of butter, swirl it around, and we're done. Going to add it on. Add some cheese. That's our dish. And you can see how much we got. This is probably good for one person. And I still have some dough left. And remember, I still have another half of the dough yet. So 1 cup each can give you can probably support 4 to almost 6 people, depending on how many gnocchis per person. And that you can determine that as you go along. There's no real set measurement for that. So I got these second ones going. So there we are. There's your gnocchi with a sage brown butter and a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top. Okay. Let me get another plate. Thought I had a second one here. Okay. So now we are ready for dinner. This I can pour out. Okay, there we go. All right, there's our gnocchi. Butter is nice and brown. The thing about brown butter is you want to get it off a little bit early because it will continue to cook a little bit. So it can get darker without even any heat. So there's our second batch. These are just gnocchis that I created on the spot. And this is what makes it fun, is you can create your own shape or no shape. Just take it and put it in your fingers and throw it in the water if you like. So there we are. And we're done. That was pretty easy, huh? Any more questions? Well, we're silent over there. I guess everybody had a good time. Everybody understands.
Well, now you have to taste one so we can see how good it is.
You want me to taste one?
Yeah.
All right. Got to be a part of it, doesn't it? Did I? Oh, my fork. Let me use my fork. Here we go. Okay. So here we are. It's nice and soft. As you can see, it's kind of large too. Oh yeah. You might want to try adding some herbs to this. Either you can add it into the dough or you can add it when you have served it. I'm going to add a little bit of salt.
So John, if we're going to freeze them, how long will they last in the freezer?
If you double wrap them, they could last up to probably a month, I would say. But I would take them out probably after a couple of weeks because there's a chance of razor burn and the dough doesn't quite work. If you make the gnocchis before freezing them, they may deteriorate a little bit. So if you just put the dough in there and then get back to the dough, you have a better chance of having better gnocchis.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you're going to freeze them after you cut them, I would probably use them up within a week. But if you want to freeze them, if you want to freeze the dough before cutting them, you're going to get a little bit of longer life in the freezer. All right. What do you think?
Well, now I'm hungry.
Yeah. And these are the made up shape.
We just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. And remember, the recipe is in the chat and we do have a post-program survey. If you have time, we'd love it if you could fill that out for us. John, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a big joy. I really enjoyed doing this. Thank you, everybody.
All right.